Shanti Last Mile Services Private Limited, Mr. Shimit PR, Chairman of FISAT, Principal Dr. Manoj George, Dean Academics Dr. Mini PR, and Dr. AJ Joshua, Director, FISAT Business School. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. We are very pleased to welcome you all to the International Conference on Banking, Finance and Accounting Research 2023. FISAT Business School, established and managed by Federal Bank Officers Association Educational Society, is a management institution under the aegis of APJ Abdul Kalam Technological University and recognized by AICTE. Recently, the institution was accredited by the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAC, with an A+ grade. To achieve what 1% of the world's population has, you must be willing to do what only 1% dare to do: hard work and perseverance of highest order. Honorable dignitaries, budding researchers, our esteemed chairman, principal, faculty members, and my dear friends. With great joy and immense exultation, I, Fauzan, and my friend Rajat here feel privileged and delighted to welcome you all to a morning that will remain as one to remember in the history of FISAT Business School. This is indeed an exhilarating moment as we are poised to embark on the next phase of our voyage into the ocean of infinite possibilities as young managers. A morning as beautiful as this must begin by seeking the blessings from the Almighty with an invocation prayer. I now invite Rochelle to lead the prayer.
Spirit of God, rain down. Spirit of God, come down. Spirit of God, come into my heart. Spirit of God, rain down. Let your power follow me. Oh, Spirit of God, power follow me. Spirit follow me and pray. Rain down, rain down, rain down in my heart some rain down, rain down, rain. Spirit of God, rain down, rain down, rain down in my heart some rain down, rain down, rain. Spirit of God.
Thank you, Rochelle. FISAT Business School aims to be a center of excellence in management education that will transform young talents into competent, confident, socially committed, and highly resourceful managers with a global vision capable of facing any challenge. None is more privileged today to extend a warm welcome to the gathering than Dr. AJ Joshua, Director and Professor of FISAT Business School. He is an exemplary leader backed by 23 years of teaching experience, working with Manipal Institute of Management and FISAT Business School. He is also a keen researcher with several publications in national and international journals. FISAT recognized him as the best teacher for the year 2019-20 for his committed and passionate teaching. He is a multifaceted academician with an ardent interest in the overall development of students and the domain of management education. He has always inspired and supported us and has never failed to guide us in the right direction. Dear sir, we request you to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Good morning. I'm the inaugural chief guest of the day, Dr. K.N. Raghavan IRS, ex-chairman of our board. Then the keynote speaker of the day, Sri K.R. Mohanendran, Managing Director and CEO, Lehanthi Last Mile Services Private Limited. Our own chairman, Sri Shimit PR, our esteemed principal, Dr. Manoj George, our esteemed, respected Dean Academics, Dr. Mini PR, the coordinator of the function, Dr. Dhanya Alex, my dear faculty friends, my students, dear students, and the HODs from the other departments who have graciously accepted the invitation and come and join us. And it is my pleasant task to deliver the welcome address. FISAT Business School customarily hold from time to time conferences, symposia, seminars on various trending topics so that the student community and the teaching community get an opportunity to get exposed to the latest happenings in the industry directly from the industry experts, leading academicians, and research scholars. This also gives a platform for the research scholars and academicians and others to present papers and get the feedback from the academic community. First and foremost, let me welcome Dr. K.N. Raghavan, IRS, who has graciously set aside valuable time to be with us. He has been the ex-chairman of Rubber Board and he is designated for greater heights in the excise department, and he is waiting for the, in the interim period. He is not only an accomplished bureaucrat, but also a medical doctor by education. Also, he is proved himself his mettle in the area of sports. He is a recognized national and international umpire for cricket. Then our keynote speaker for the day, Sri K.R. Mohanendran sir, requires no introduction at all. Requires no introduction at all. Actually, he has been in the managing committee of FISAT, and he has had 43 years in commercial banking and risk management. He's been the former vice president and chief risk officer, ESAB Small Finance Bank, former member of faculty, economics and banking, Bharat Mata School of Legal Studies, and former chief general manager and risk officer, Federal Bank. I welcome you, sir. Sri Shrimit PR, chairman of FISAT and secretary of FBOA, has been always behind us, encouraging and supporting us through all our endeavors. And he has graciously accepted to chair the session. I welcome you, sir. I welcome the captain of the ship, which is FISAT, Dr. Manoj George, principal FISAT. He has been leading FISAT through many turbulent times, successfully, day by day. I welcome you, sir. Dr. Mini PR, Dean Academics, and also the person responsible for getting NAC and accreditation. As you know, we got A+ accreditation by NAC, almost missed A++ by a whisker. And also 5 of our departments got extension in case of NBA accreditation, and she is the leading light in that matter. I welcome Dr. Mini PR. I welcome my faculty, the head of the departments from other, HODs from other departments, who have taken their time off to join us. I also welcome my faculty colleagues as well as staff members. Also, though it's a cliche, but again I am repeating it, last but not the least, I welcome you wholeheartedly, my dear students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for extending a warm welcome to everyone. So I take the privilege to invite you also to the function. Let us now welcome Dr. Manoj George, Principal of FISAT, a man of distinct vision and a fountainhead of illuminating ideas. He has completed his doctoral degree and MTech from Cochin University of Science and Technology and BTech from NSS College of Engineering, Palakkad. He has over 26 years of professional experience with demonstrated history of working in the educational industry, curriculum development, project management, and e-learning, and is a renowned researcher with several quality publications to his credit, which includes publication in Journal of Applied Polymer Science, Wiley Periodicals, Inc. And on this occasion, it is my privilege to invite you, sir, to deliver the principal's address. Sir, please.
Respected Chairman of Rubber Board, Dr. K. Raghavan IRS, Honorable Chairman Sri Shimit PR, Sri K.R. Mohanendran, Managing Director, CEO, Lendani Last Mile Services Limited, Dr. Mini PR, Dean Academics, Dr. A.J. Joshua, Director, FBS, esteemed guests, respected faculty and participants. It is with great pleasure and pride I am attending the inauguration of the International Conference on Banking, Finance and Accounting Research, organized by the FISAT Business School. This conference brings together renowned scholars, researchers, professionals and practitioners to discuss and deliberate crucial issues related to the financial markets, banking and accounting. First and foremost, I would like to extend my heartfelt congratulations and appreciation to the organizers of this conference for their tireless efforts in putting together such an esteemed event. The meticulous planning, coordination and dedication that have gone into making this conference a reality are truly commendable. I am confident that the conference will be a platform for meaningful discussion, insightful presentations, and fruitful networking of opportunities. As we gather today, we are reminded of the significance of the fields of banking, finance, and accounting in the modern world. The financial market is a complex and dynamic ecosystem that plays a critical role in the global economic development. Banking institutions are the backbone of the financial system, while accounting practices ensures transparency, accuracy, and accountability in financial reporting. The challenges and opportunities in these areas are constantly evolving, and it is imperative for the researchers and practitioners to stay abreast of the latest developments. I believe this conference provides an invaluable opportunity for scholars and professionals to share their research findings, exchange ideas, and engage in thought-provoking discussions. The lineup of sessions, panel discussions, and keynote speech promises to be intellectually stimulating and insightful, covering a wide range of topics including the regulatory frameworks, risk management, financial innovations, sustainability, and technological disruptions in the banking, finance, and accounting domains. I am confident that this conference will be a melting pot of diverse perspectives, fostering the interdisciplinary collaborations and encouraging innovative thinking. It is an excellent platform for participants to learn from each other, challenging existing notions and collectively contributing to the advancement of knowledge in the field. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the esteemed speakers, delegates, and participants who have contributed to the research and insight to this conference. Your expertise and contributions are invaluable, and I am certain that your deliberations will enhance our understanding of the critical issues of the field of banking, finance, and accounting. I would like to extend my appreciation to the organization committee, faculty, and staff volunteers for their hard work, dedication in organizing conference. Your efforts have been instrumental in making this event reality. I am confident that it will be a grand success. In conclusion, I wish all the participants productive and enriching conference experience. I encourage you to actively encourage discussion, network with the fellow researchers and practitioners, and explore opportunities for collaborative research. Let us collectively contribute to the advancement of knowledge and drive positive change in the field of banking, finance, and accounting. Once again, I extend my warmest welcome to all of you, and I look forward to the fruitful deliberation in days to come. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for addressing the gathering. A good leader's courage to fulfill the vision comes from passion, a culture of innovation that exceeds one's satisfaction. I'm immensely elated to have with us today Mr. Shimit Pia, who is the chairman of the governing body of FISAT. He is a person with a distinct vision and stellar ideas, a fountain of head of knowledge, experience, and inspiration to all of us. Shimit Pia joined Federal Bank Alwa in 1997 and worked as the senior manager in the operations department. He is also the secretary of FBOAs, general secretary of FBOA. I take this opportunity to invite you, sir, for delivering the presidential address.
Our distinguished guest, Dr. K.N. Raghavan, IRS Chairman, Rubber Board, Sri K.R. Mohanendran, Managing Director and CEO, Lahandi Last Mile Service Private Limited, and other dignitaries on the dais and faculties and students. It is really great pleasure to preside over this international conference on banking, finance, and accounting research. Today we have two speakers with immense of experience in their field. You may know the personalities, already some details are given here. So the word experience is important because the experience itself is education. Someone told that the taste of a watermelon is an experience. Sorry, is an education. The bite of a mosquito is an education. And the third one is maybe more interest for you. The experience of falling in love is an education. Not told by me, some educationist. I heard it when I was doing the Bachelor of Education. So still that quote is in my mind because it is very special, right? Every experience is an education. So today you have the experience of these two distinguished speakers. So you will learn something, you will get educated today. And I'm sure that you will remember. You cannot remember everything what they have going to tell, but there may be a word that will carry forward in your life. That has to be there. So listen to them carefully and be educated. Thank you very much for the supporters and the students. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable words.
In the words of famous poet Amanda Gorman, there is always light if only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it. So, to make this morning a blessed one, let us invoke light by kindling the lamp of knowledge and wisdom. For seeking the choicest blessing for the same, I invite the guest for the day, Dr. N.K. Raghavan, IRS, keynote speaker Sri K.R. Mohanachandran, to light the lamp, and I request all other distinguished dignitaries on the dais to join them. I also invite Dr. Dhanya Alex, conference coordinator, to kindly join them.
Thank you, sirs and ma'am. We are immensely privileged to have an eminent personality with us today as our chief guest, Dr. N.K. Raghavan, IRS, Chairman, Rubber Board. He is the Executive Director of Rubber Board Government of India since 2019. He is also the Chairman of International Rubber Study Group, IRSG, an intergovernmental organization of natural and synthetic rubber producing and consuming countries with headquarters at Singapore. Dr. Raghavan is now holding the additional charge as Chairman of Marine Products Export Development Authority, Kochi. Earlier, he served as Principal Commissioner of GST and Central Exercise, Mumbai Central. A native of Cochin, Dr. Raghavan acquired MPBS degree from Calicut Medical College in 1988 before joining the Indian Revenue Service in 1990. He served in diverse capacities as Commissioner of Customs, Kochi, Deputy Director, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, MD Kerala Cooperative Rubber Marketing Federation, CEO, Cooperative Medical College, Cochin, and CEO, Norca Roads. He also served as the first secretary in High Commission of India, Singapore. I kindly request you to inaugurate the conference with good tidings and deliver the inaugural address.
President for the function, Sri P.R. Schmidt, keynote speaker, Mr. Mohanachandran, Principal Dr. Manoj George, Director Dr. Joshua, Dr. Mini, Dr. Dhanya, other members of the faculty of FISAT, and dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by congratulating FISAT for the great strides they have made during the last many years that they have been in existence. It is indeed gratifying to see that an institution has grown in size, it has grown in stature, and is producing quality manpower that will go in the service of the country. So congratulations to you all. Give a big hand to the faculty. We are having this conference in a very critical period. I use the word critical because you would have read in the newspapers that India has taken over the presidency of G20, the group of 20 nations that decide the fate of the globe. Earlier, we used to have a powerful body as the United Nations and its permanent Security Council comprising of the 5 most powerful nations who used to decide on matters of geopolitical significance. But now, UN has become almost redundant. For want of a better word, I use the word redundant. And the power has shifted to a larger group of 20 countries, the richer countries who invariably control the international trade, finance, and the dynamics that go with it. And for this year, we are the president of G20. So you'll be seeing a lot of conferences, functions, events associated with India's G20 presidency. And this will also be the projection of India as a world leader. We also in a time when we have become the 5th largest economy in the world. We have overtaken Great Britain. We had overtaken France a few years back, and these two are permanent members of the Security Council of the UN. And we have ahead of us countries like USA, China, Japan, and Germany. With a $3.7 trillion economy, it is expected that we will overtake Germany in probably 3 or 4 years, Japan in another 5-7 years, and by the turn of the next decade, we would be the third largest economy in the world. So we are poised for growth, and probably becoming the 3rd largest economy means that we are in the top 3 so far as the world is concerned. But does this reflect the reality in India? When you travel from here to Cochin, at every traffic signal, you find young children coming asking for alms. You find people still sleeping, even in a state like Kerala, which is probably more developed than the rest of the country. People still sleeping on the parapets, people still sleeping by the roadside. There is poverty all around. When you take the list of countries in the richest listing economy-wise, we find that we have the lowest per capita income among the top 30. It is only the 31st country, the Nigeria, which has a per capita income lower than India. And even Bangladesh, who we consider to be lowly placed, small country, depend on us, has a higher per capita income than we do. So we continue to be a poor country, despite being the 5th largest economies, striding fast to become the 3rd largest economy. We continue to be a country where poverty continues to exist. Out of the 700 odd million poor people in the world, more than 10% is in India. Much more than 10% in India. And we also find that a considerable number of the poor are the children, which means that when they go forward in life, they will not be having not just lack of education, but they will be encumbered by the problems of poverty. They will not be having basic food, shelter, and clothing, which is a sense that they become a burden on the society. And it is for us to solve the problem. So poverty is something that has coexisted in India maybe from time immemorial. Even when we speak about the brilliance of the Mughals and other things, there was a considerable portion of the population that used to be poor. But never was a stark poverty that we have been seeing in the years of the 20th century existed in the previous centuries. What has happened is that a percentage of the population has been pushed below the poverty line, and whatever measures we have taken has not proved sufficient to bring them out of it. Yes, we can say that during the reform period, a lot of people came out of poverty, but many more slipped into poverty again when the COVID pandemic struck us. So until and unless we remove the stigma of poverty from the country, we cannot call ourselves developed, we cannot call ourselves powerful, and any other adornment like the 3rd, 4th, 5th largest economy would just be an eyewash, because the reality, the ground reality is different. How do we solve this problem? There are many methods of solving the problem of poverty. If you recall, Japan as a country was shattered. They were destroyed at the end of Second World War. South Korea was in tatters. How did they recover? When we find the example of China, a country larger than us but poorer than us during the 1970s, they were almost, you can say, immobilized with a cultural revolution that took place within them when Mao Zedong passed away and Deng Xiaoping came into charge during the last years of the 1970s. How did they manage to turn over? So all the changeovers that have happened in Japan, Korea, China have happened because growth took place there, economic growth took place there. How did the economic growth take place there? Because they started manufacturing products. And once they started manufacturing products and selling it to the rest of the world, automatically the economic growth happened. And when economic growth in double figures happened, there was a need for more jobs, the need for more skilled manpower. companies expanded, and thus there was general prosperity. In China, you don't see poor people these days. Yes, there would be poverty somewhere which may be hidden in the pockets in Tibet and Xinjiang. But overall, when you look at it, the people who go without food, people who go without shelter, people who go without clothing are not there in the country any longer, unlike what happened in the past. Japan is a prosperous country today, whereas we have remained where we were, or the progress that we have made has been too small and too pitiful. So what should we do? We should grow. There's no doubt about it. We should grow, and we should grow fast. And we should attain 10-digit growth, which we haven't done. Every year we say about cracking the 10-digit. We reach up to 9%, 8.5%. Now, of course, we have been bogged down by the COVID and other issues, so we are still a very large and fast-growing economy, but we are nowhere near achieving 10%. And unless we are able to clock 10% growth for at least 5 years consecutively, we will not be able to break this barrier that brings poverty to the country. So how will we manage that? Are we on track for that? I'm an old school person. I look at the government performance to see how we'll go forward, because the performance of the government is key to how the other sectors in the economy, how the public sector, the private sector perform. Everything hinges upon the policies of the government. Still, it happens in India that way. When we look at it, we had a OECD telling us that you solve the problems relating to labor, you solve the problems relating to regulation, you solve the problems relating to healthcare sector and environment, and then you will have growth being achieved. Is it that simple? It is not that simple, because solving these problems itself is much more complicated than what we expect to be. But when you look at what the government has been doing, I'll just portray a bit about the budget that was placed on the floor of the House by the Honorable Finance Minister a couple of months back, and see where India is headed for. If you look at the total budget expenditure, we have a budget expenditure of 45 lakh crores, out of which 10 lakh crores has been set apart for capital development, which is a huge amount. Never in the history of the country has such a huge amount been set apart for development of capital resources, development of infrastructure. 2 years back, it was around 5 lakh crores, then it became 7 lakh crores, now we have 10 lakh crores. So that's a huge amount of money that government has taken the lead to invest, so that there is development of infrastructure within the country. The road development that you see, as we come along this road itself, you can see that a lot of changes are taking place. That you see when you travel along the length of breadth of Kerala, which is one of the smallest states situated in one corner of the country. But if you travel around the country, you will see that there's tremendous amount of resources have been invested into development of physical infrastructure in the form of roads, in the form of bridges, in the form of trains, new trains coming in. This Vande Bharat is just one example. Here, new green field airports coming up, you have waterways coming up, and there is huge thrust on logistics. Why is this push on infrastructure important? Because infrastructure, as you're all well aware, affects all the other sectors. You will have more demand for steel, you'll have more demand for cement, you'll have demand for almost everything else connected to it, so that will act as a support for growth. For an economy which was affected badly by COVID, where the private sector was hit sharply and the returns fell down drastically because of COVID, this would be a boon sent for developing again, for growing again. So the government has been taking the lead during the last 3 years to promote this sort of growth. So if out of the 45 lakh crores, more than 25%, almost 25%, let's put it at around 23 or 24%, is being kept apart for capital growth or growth of the infrastructure in the country, that shows that we are on the right track, because that will actually spur growth in many other sectors and ensure that there is all-round growth. So the impact of this would be seen in the years ahead, when you find that the cement, steel, and the other related industries, ancillary industries, will keep growing at a much faster pace. Now, when we look at the other thing, what gives the government the confidence that we will be able to push in 10 lakh crores into the sector? There we come to the importance of mobilization of resources. After all, a budget is nothing other than expenditure versus the revenue. What is your income and what is your expenditure? Well, the government income comes from two main sources. One is taxes, the other is maybe a small amount through dividends, interest realization and all that. And the third is borrowings. These are three things. When you look at the total tax revenue of the country, we have tax revenue of around 33 lakh crores. 18 lakh crores come from the direct taxes side, equal split between the corporate tax and the income tax. And the remaining 15 lakh crores comes from the indirect tax side, where I work in. Almost close to 10 lakh crores come from the GST. That is the central GST part. The states get their own share of it. Then the remaining come from customs duty, union excise duties, and a bit from the service tax. So out of the 33 lakh crores, 10 lakh crores is the devolution that you have to give to state governments. So the remaining 23 lakh crores remain with the government. Another 3 lakh crores come from the disinvestment and dividends that the government gets. And the remaining 17 lakh crores is what the government borrows. So you have to see, government has tax revenue, government borrows. So these are the two major sources of money that the government has. The reason why government felt that it can go ahead with such a huge investment in infrastructure is because of the buoyancy in tax revenues. Every year on year, you'd be reading that the GST revenues have increased. I'll come to that subsequently because there are some interesting facets of banking which comes into that. But it is because of huge buoyancy in the tax revenues that the government is able to fund all this growth in the infrastructure, which is pretty impressive. And tax revenues become buoyant for two reasons. One, companies are earning well, people are earning well. So there is people in the tax bracket, the richer guys, the companies, the corporates who pay the tax, people who have a basic income of around above 5 or 10 lakh rupees, they are able to pay taxes. And GST is something which affects everyone. You buy something, you automatically end up paying GST on it. And people are exporting and importing, so you get the customs duty, and there is excise duty on stuff like petroleum products. So all these sectors where the tax comes in are buoyant right now, and that actually helps for the increase in the tax revenues. And the government is confident that it can borrow the required amount, which will not be a problem because government issues bonds and government can be a net borrower. There is nothing stronger than the borrowings of the government. It is the stablest or the safest deposit that any individual can make. So both these will put together will ensure that government gets a 45 lakh crores or in the vicinity of it that they want to spend on this thing. And the revenues are also tied up. But if you look at the expenditure side, I said about the 10 lakh crores going into the capital growth. But there has also been sub-cuts that have been made. Where are the cuts being made? When you look at the budget figure per se, you find that maximum resources have been kept apart for the growth of ministries like defense, of course, is there because we have to protect ourselves. We live in a very, very critical or a volatile neighborhood. We cannot choose our neighbors. We have Pakistan on one side, we have China on the other side, and we have very, very difficult neighbors on many in the vicinity. So we have to protect ourselves, so there has to be investment, there has to be the funds given to defense. But we are investing considerably in road transport and highways, we are investing considerably into railways, and we are investing into two areas. One is provision of clean drinking water, which is very important because we have to protect the environment that we live in. And we are also investing into skill development. Now, when we talk about skill development, we find that we are a huge population. We always speak about the demographic dividend. But if you are not able to skill them, if you are not able to train them properly, what will they end up as? They will end up either begging on the streets, or they will go the other way and start throwing stones, or the worst case scenario, they may even take up arms and get into some sort of militancy. So it's a duty of the government to see that the youngsters, particularly those coming into the productive phase of their life, are adequately skilled. So there is a lot of resources being kept for skilling and for provision of Jal Jeevan mission and for the urban and rural planning. So these are going to be the key areas where the resources of government are going to be spent other than for infrastructure. And one important thing that we see is that the funds that have been kept apart for the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Generation Mission, what is called fondly as a MNREGS, has been cut down. What was earlier somewhere around 90,000 crores has been slashed to 60,000 crores. This also shows the confidence of the government. Why? Because you remember in 2004, the BJP government was in power. They had the India Shining campaign, and unfortunately, or for whatever reason, the government lost the election. The next government which came in rightly identified that the India Shining campaign was focused towards the urban elites. It forgot the ordinary Aam Aadmi in the villages. That's a Bharat. So they want to have a special project, special scheme for the poor people. So they brought in the what we fondly call as the Tozhiluruppu Pathadi, or what is called as the National Rural Employment Generation Guarantee Scheme. So this was something of a flagship program for that government, UPA government, which was there for till 2014. But the present dispensation under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who came into power in 2014, continued with that because they were rather afraid to shake it for fear that it may cause some amount of repercussions. But now it's a confident government. They have found that yes, there is no problem in cutting down the resources, because once you see that when you're guaranteeing wages to a family, it is good. They are assured of certain livelihood. But at the same time, what did you prefer? Would you want to skill a person and make him productive for life? Or do you want to guarantee the job which essentially involves unskilled labor? Mind you, all the resources, all the payments under the MGNREGS is given only for unskilled labor. For example, if you want to tap in the rubber plantations, you see rubber plantations all around. Tapping is a skilled labor. It doesn't fall under MGNREGS. So only the people who cut the grass, do the weeding work in the plantation will fall under MGNREGS. Do you want more of tappers or do you want more people who cut the grass? That's the choice that comes in. Government has wisely or boldly decided to take the plunge that we will invest more in skilling and in giving a productive life to people than in going and giving a sustainable, what do you call a doll to the people concerned. So this is a huge policy change that has come into the picture now. So what we see as a policy statement of the government is that we are going to invest more into infrastructure. Because this is something which is long-standing. The airports that we build, the roads that we construct, the railways that we create, are things will remain for not just decades, for centuries altogether. So this is something of a sustainable nature which will take the country forward. And that will actually spur growth in the other segment also. We are going to invest in productive resources. We are going to skill the manpower. We are going to provide clean drinking water. We are going to build livable cities in clean environment. This is the focus that has come into it, rather than making them survive on dolls. So this, if it succeeds, we will see that it's a huge change that is likely to happen in the scenario of the country during the next 5 or 10 years. And that will cause India to grow forward. And by the time the next decade comes in, we actually would be deserving our seat in the committee of the top 3 nations of the world. What are the headwinds against this? This is the optimistic picture. We can all say that, well, I'll study, I'll get a rank, I'll get a job, I'll have a family, I'll have a car, I'll have, all these are dreams that we have. But there are bound to be headwinds that come in. There are bound to be challenges. We are bound to trip up somewhere. What are the possible challenges that can come in? The first is, well, we saw the COVID. 10 years ago, nobody would have dreamt of a pandemic. When I studied in medical college, we heard about the plague epidemic, Spanish flu pandemic, and then thought that this is not going to happen in our lifetime. Just as we thought that the floods will not happen in Kerala. Well, these things have a capacity to recur and tell us that, yes, environment, nature, this is all powerful. So any sort of calamity of the nature of a COVID or a pandemic that happens can be hugely disastrous for an economy, particularly a developing economy like India's. Second, geopolitical factors. Now, we know one of the main problems that the world faces today is the ongoing, unending war between Russia and Ukraine. Why has it happened? It is because there have been problems between the two countries, which is made worse by the sort of rulers that have been there in these countries. They are people who have not seen the larger global picture. But if you look around us, you find that the era of the strong men has come into international politics. We have strong leaders now. People who project themselves as strong leaders and people who anoint themselves as leaders for life. When such leaders come in, well, they can do tremendous amount of good. But there is also the possibility that they can enter into their own world of delusions and hallucinations. We saw what happened in the first half of the 20th century when people like Mussolini and Hitler came into power. Well, Mussolini had the delusions that the Italian army could fight like the German, and Hitler was so drawn into his own world of grandeur that he thought that he could take on both England, Russia, and US at the same time. In a matter of 6 months, he announced war on, he was having a war with England, he announced a war with Russia, and then he joined Japan, the war against USA. Only a madman could do that. But that is what happened in the world at that time. So when you have people in power who are capable of taking decisions without application of rational mind, anything can go wrong. And this is an era when, once again, the strong men have come to the power in international politics. So the next few decades promises to be pretty threatening to the international peace. And these are people who play around with nuclear arsenal, not like Hitler, who never had the capacity for doing that. We have in a small country like North Korea, which has its own dictator and who has its own nuclear arsenal. We have countries in the neighborhood who have nuclear powers. So anything can happen if the dictator feels that, if the strong man feels that his person is threatened, any sort of calamity can befall us. So this is a huge challenge that we should be prepared for. So India's role when it comes to G20 will be to ensure that there is always a scope for dialogue, because it is only when dialogue stops that the armed conflict begins. So there will always be space for dialogue and healthy interaction between the countries. Third, depression or the slowdown that is happening globally. The figures of the Commerce Ministry for exports and imports were released last week. We find that our merchandise exports, which were topped at $422 billion US, increased only to $447 billion. As a person who has worked in the Commerce Ministry for 4 years, I know that we are expecting somewhere around $480 billion US. But it stuck at 447 mainly because of a global slowdown. When there is an inflation happening in the Western world, when the growth is slow there, obviously the demand for imported products will come down. So this has affected us. The only positive sign is that our imports had increased. Our imports increasing so that there is increased demand for goods, increased demand for capital goods, increased demand for consumables, increased demand for catalysts and intermediate goods within the country, which shows that our economy is live and kicking. So even though we see a current account deficit which is larger than that of last year, it is actually not something too much to worry about. But the global depression is certainly a factor that we need to worry about because it can act as a serious headwind to our growth potential. The fourth is political instability. We, in the discussions about financial market, will certainly come in. The role being played by FIIs and FDIs in sustaining the financial market in our country. Why do countries or companies or financial institutions invest in India? They get a higher return. Our economy is the second fastest growing economy in the world, so they expect that compared to other countries where you probably get a return of 1% or 2%, in India it is still possible to get a return of return in double digits annually at the moment. We find that a lot of mutual funds, investments in mutual funds will give us return at 10% and 15%. Even the banks offer around 7 to 8% returns. So compared to the Western world, we offer a higher rate of returns, which is why people tend to invest in our country. Stock market is doing well. It has got good systems for checks and balances. So there is an increased amount of consumer confidence in our systems. So there is a lot of FII inflows that keep coming in. But if there's a political instability in the country, what will happen? They will immediately take the money back because while returns are certainly welcome, nobody will want to invest in a market which is unstable, where the returns are unstable. So they will go back to a market where the stable at lower returns are there. They will take the money back to USA, which is why whenever you see that there's a global calamity or any sort of global disturbance, all the money that is parked in the markets in developing countries immediately goes back to USA because that's the safest place to invest in. It is stable, and whatever happens, that country is not going to collapse in a short span. So this is something which we have to be extremely careful. Any sort of political instability that comes in the country, and there is an election that is coming next year. We had many governments in the last 30 years after we opened up, but broadly they all followed the similar economic policies. So long as the continuance of the economic policies are assured, investment should come in. But political instability is something which is wrong which sends a wrong signal to the possible potential investors. Fifth is any internal disruptions. When I speak about internal disruptions, the biggest internal disruption that happened in the course of the last decade was the demonetization that happened. So any sort of internal disruptions again can be a huge challenge to the Indian growth story, which I had projected in a very optimistic mode. Now I'll come to three aspects which briefly touch upon because you are all going to discuss in the area of financial and accounting research. I had a tenure as principal commissioner of GST in Mumbai. So when I was working in Mumbai, it was the initial days of GST. One officer came to me and said that he was seeing a very particular pattern with regard to the functioning of a company. The company was manufacturing and moving goods to company A, and this company was selling to company B. Company B was selling back to the original company. So a sort of a circular trading was taking place. We actually checked up, we found that the vehicle numbers which are given for the transport of goods, though normally they should be going in lorries and containers, actually have numbers of some scooters. When we checked, what we found was very interesting. We found that when the company did not have adequate cash flows, it used to come, the mother company will set up a shell company and it will show sales to that company. And using that company will show the sales to a third company. So 3-4 shell companies are being set up and each will show the receipt of goods and sales. And once you show the details of sales to a bank, you automatically get a credit line from the bank. So this was what was happening. So we thought it is funny. There was no evasion of duty per se because nothing had gone out. There was no non-payment of duty, but this sort of circular trading was happening. We investigated further. We found that one of the biggest names in Indian retail retail market, he was doing it. We just picked up the papers, and next day the guy came to my office to meet me. We had a cup of tea. He was a very, very learned person. He had written books about the India growth story, a lot of interesting things. He was interested in cricket. We talked about. Then he finally said, see, your officers came and picked up some papers. I said, what about that? No, it is nothing wrong. We were just, I would call it a bit of creative leveraging. Excuse me? He called it creative leveraging. He was actually printing bogus invoice and availing credit from bank. And the money that is parked is your money and my money. And he is taking that and he is making his companies go around, which is not productive at all. So anyway, this person who did the creative leveraging, we had to issue notice, and his company folded, and nowadays he is not to be seen anywhere. But what it showed to us was that it is not just the Vijay Mallayas or Nirav Modis who cheat the banks. Even the smaller companies, even the medium-sized companies, and some of the larger companies as well do this technique. If you've seen the buoyancy in GST revenue, one reason is because this fake invoicing has been effectively been stopped. At one time, it was around 80,000 crores per month of GST revenue. When it reached 90 plus, we were happy. And before I left the department in 2019, once we had reached 1 lakh crores, we were thrilled. Now it regularly touches 140 and 150 crores and 150,000 crores, and it's on the brink of touching 160,000 crores also. This has happened only because of more accountability coming in. We have been able to crack it and ensure that the fake invoice are solved. More than that, the bigger impact is that our money is safer in the banks. So the due diligence that is being performed by the banks, they were doing it because they had a proper invoice, so they gave the credit. That's the correct thing to do. But at the same time, like you can print currency, you can also print invoice, and you can also print documents. So this is certainly a loophole which we had seen. So it is for the professionals working there. It is for the audit teams that are functioning there. It is for the risk managers who are sitting there to ensure that these sort of frauds do not happen. We all have to work together. Second is what happens outside the banking system, what is fondly called as a hawala. I had worked for 5 years in the revenue intelligence thing that I did in the 1990s, long back. Those days, up to 1990, we had a lot of gold smuggling happening into the country. Not like today, there were not many airports. So people used to buy gold in Dubai, and then they used to transport it in Arab those. They used to land it any portion of the coast, right from Gujarat all the way till Kanyakumari at any of the landing points, and then it will all find its way into the Mumbai market. This used to happen. But in 1991, we had a new government led by Mr. Narasimha Rao. Mr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister. And in 1992 budget, he announced that any NRI can bring in up to 5 kg gold on payment of duty at 22 rupees per gram. It was amazing. So when I was working in DRI, we used to find that at least 40 to 50 people from Gulf will be bringing 5 kg gold. And they will be paying duty, and immediately outside the airport, they will be giving it to another person. We used to find out how do they get the money for that. And that was how we found out what is called the hawala. Hawala was always in existence. What is hawala? Hawala essentially is that a person working in Gulf sends the money through non-banking channels. How does that happen? Supposing you're working in Saudi Arabia, you are all well off, you will be working in good institutions. But a person who goes to work in Saudi Arabia in the unorganized sector, who tends to camels, who does some outside work, he gets probably a day off on a Friday. And on Friday, the banks don't open. So how does he send money home? After all, he has gone abroad to send money to his family, his mother, his wife, his kids. So he has no other recourse but to give it to a person who will come and collect it and say, I will have it delivered at your house. So what happens is that X in Saudi gives money to Y. The Y ensures that the Z gives the money to X family in Chavakad or Malappuram or Varkala or wherever it is. Very smooth transaction. And the beauty is that there is no cheating involved there. I had monitored the working of various hawala syndicates. Only thing they are doing is that they are not bringing money into the normal banking channel. So then what is wrong with this? One, we have to encourage money to come through the normal banking channel. Otherwise, what are the banking channels for? Second, this is ultimately unaccounted money. When unaccounted money comes into a country, lot of bad deeds can happen across. You find that most of the damages that have happened, the social fabric of the state, is because of unaccounted money coming in. Now, after Mr. Manmohan Singh left the finance department, the rate of duty on gold started increasing. Incidentally, when he was the prime minister, that Mr. Chidambaram increased the rate of duty of gold to 10%, which is why all this smuggling is taking place. Those days, it was hawala which cause the smuggling or the movement of gold. This day, smuggling is happening because there's a margin involved in it. There's a duty margin involved. If there's a 10% or 12% margin on a kilo of gold will cost around 60 lakhs of rupees. Who will not do it? That is, if you bring in 1 bar of gold concealed somewhere, you get a margin of 6 lakhs. There will be many people who are willing to take the risk in doing that. So that is what has happened as a Hawala, the thing which has come in. So Hawala, when you talk about, has a social aspect also. They are not, the person sitting in Gulf or in Saudi and sending money doesn't want to break the laws, but he has no access to a regular banking channel. So this is some area which future bankers will have to think about, to extend the reach of the banking services to all parts, or to have some system for collecting and bringing money to the banking channel. It's still a long way off, but these are areas in which more research needs to be done in. Finally, the area of counterfeiting. Counterfeiting has been one of the biggest challenges that the Indian financial sector had faced. Probably none of us knew about the impact of this. When I was working in Singapore, one day I got a call from Papua New Guinea. All those countries in that region were technically under this thing for the customs related work. Not from Papua New Guinea, I got a call from Brunei. I asked, what is the problem? Then they say that we have found a gentleman having Indian currency who wants to exchange. Those days a 2,000 rupee note was there. He had brought in 100 2,000 rupee notes. He wants to exchange that for this thing. We don't take Indian rupees, so what can be done? Then I asked, who is the gentleman? So he gave the name of a particular community. I asked, what is the nationality? He said, it's a Pakistani. Then I said, please, let's have the notes checked first. So we asked the person to take the notes and send it to Singapore. We got it checked and we found that it was a fake Indian currency note. The entire set of 100 2,000 rupee notes are fake Indian currencies. And honestly, we will not be able to find out the difference with even with a trained eye. It required some extra effort on the part of the SBA branch at Singapore to find out that these were fake Indian currency notes. So that was a degree of penetration of fake Indian currencies into the Indian economy. We had cases in Malaysia where lots of fake Indian currencies were being sent from Malaysia. It was also done by one of our neighboring countries. So this sort of penetration into the Indian economy is certainly bad. So what is the solution for that? Solution for that is that we have to rely more on electronic modes for our transactions. Demonetization, I said, was certainly a challenge because it had decelerated growth at that point. It's certainly there. But it had also, on the other side, spurred the use of electronic means. Nowadays, I find that at least 80% of my monthly expenses goes in through either card or Google Pay or through banking modes. Earlier, it was not so. A lot of payments, especially that you give for the informal sector working in the house, used to be in cash. Now those cash payments have come down in 90% of the sectors. So this is one great stride that you have made. But we still have miles to go. If you visit Europe, nobody takes even $1 or €1 or whatever be the currency or £1. They all accept only cards. They all accept only electronic transactions. So that is the extent to which we need to go, because otherwise, the more we delay it, the more will be the challenge of the fake Indian or the counterfeit currencies invading our systems. I will not take longer. You have a day of long, detailed deliberations ahead. I wish you all success. I thank the organizers, Dr. Dhanya in particular, for inviting me to be part of this August gathering. Wish you all success and good luck. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir, for your detailed and meticulous anatomy of nation's budget, policy, latest financial trends, and finally shedding light on the geopolitical situation of the world. It was an insightful chronology of information for us young managers. In the famous words of Manoj Arora, do not focus on money. Instead, focus on a problem that needs to be solved for the world. Money will follow you as a byproduct. I'm also equally privileged to welcome our keynote speaker, Shri K.R. Mohanachandran, Managing Director and CEO, Lahanti Last Mile Services Private Limited. He is a postgraduate in economics who has 43 years experience in commercial banking and risk management. He has 37 plus years of service in Federal Bank. He was a former General Manager and Chief Risk Officer in Federal Bank. He was a former Senior Vice President and Chief Risk Officer, ISAF Small Finance Bank. He was former member of faculty, Economics and Banking, Bharat Mata School of Legal Studies. He is presently the Managing Director and CEO of Lahanti Last Mile Services Private Limited, Business Correspondent of ISAF Small Finance Bank. Sir, I kindly request you to deliver the keynote address.
Good morning. Mr. Srimit, Dr. K.N. Raghavan, all the esteemed guests, participants, delegates, Dr. Mini in particular, Dr. Thanya in particular, Dr. Mini. Thank you for inviting me for this program. I see a lot of young talent sitting in front of me. So it is naturally with a lot of pleasure that I address you. As Mr. Shimi said in the beginning, many of you may not understand all that we speak. But at least a few things you should try to understand and should take away. That should be the takeaway of this conference. This is titled as an international conference on banking, finance, and accounting standards. But I'm very happy to say that most of the participants are very young students of the college of the Institute, FISAT, and therefore it's a pleasure for me to address you this morning. Title of the program is Banking, Finance and Accounting Research. So naturally, I presume that all those who attend this program must be either doing research or interested to do research or still going on doing research on a regular basis on banking, finance, accounting and all. Ultimately, what is the purpose of that? You may publish a lot of research papers in international journals or national journals. It will certainly earn a good fame for you. You will be a doctor of philosophy. You will teach. You will guide others. But more than that, that's all certainly good. But more than that, it should enable the system to improve. Mostly Dr. Raghavan also focused on that one. We have miles to go, and our journey has only started in India. And therefore, the research papers or research part which you do, as youngsters particularly, that should be helpful for the organization you work or the society as a whole, for the economy and the industry in which you are working. If you do that one, that is the biggest contribution you can make to the economy. Because any number of researches happened in the globe in the last few decades. You look at it, particularly in the field of banking, finance and accounting, you have no dearth of topics to research upon. Every day is a learning experience for you, for us. And therefore you get a lot of topics to research upon. And you make papers, publish papers, and that earn you a good note of fame also in the industry. But whether this research you do in accounting, in finance, in banking, whether it helps you or the economy or the society or the industry in which you work to address the real challenges that economy is facing or the industry is facing or the institution is facing, I would request all of you to just look at that part also when you go for research or when you do research. Just look back. Since most of I see a lot of young students in front of me. I may go a little preliminary, but not going to the history of Indian banking and all. Most of you must have certainly studied the elements of banking, the evolution of banking and all, isn't it? In the year in the 1960s, the entire banking industry in India was talking about social cause. That led to the first bank nationalization in the year 1969, followed by the next lot of bank nationalization in the year 1980. Ultimately, the aim was social cause. Even today, we talk about that. Rural development, eradication of poverty, upliftment of the poor, serving the unserved and underserved. All these are the topics which we have been discussing all along. Now, if it was there in the year 1960 or 60s, even the 2020s also, we discuss about the same thing. Eradication of poverty, upliftment of the poor, serving the unserved and underserved in the society, all those things we still talk about. After the nationalization, in the first nationalization in 1969, there came several experiments. The first experiment started with strengthening the cooperative system in India. Where do we stand with cooperative system in India now? You take, for example, the state of Kerala. What is the state of health of the cooperative system in Kerala now? And therefore, after that came in a lot of focus on the regional rural banks, Grameen banks. Came in the later part, the small finance banks, India payment banks. Everything had a focus on the social cause, eradication of poverty, helping the poor, helping these unserved, underserved segments of the society and all. And where do we stand now? What is the reason why it has not served the purpose for which it was done? That is what we have to think about. Your research papers, the topics on which you do research, not preliminary on the social cause or 1960 or nationalization, but you do a lot of advanced research also. But think of for a moment whether it helps you or the society or the economy or the industry to which you belong to understand ultimately the complexities of banking, finance, and accounting. If it helps, well and good. If it doesn't help, it becomes just a paper. You can earn fame out of publishing an international journal, national journal, but ultimately it serves a purpose for you and your society only if it opens the door of complexities and challenges of banking, finance, or accounting. Accounting standards are changing. Audit process is changing. Understanding subject considerably. Lot of business school, India and abroad, everybody is focusing on this one. But ultimately, whether it is helping the industry to understand the challenges, the complexities. In the introduction, people said, I have a background of risk management also. So I see your research papers. I read your research papers from the point of view of risk management. The complexities in which we are all, the economy is in. If your research papers on banking, finance, and accounting leads us to open the door of complexities and risk in business, that helps not only you, but the society as a whole, whether it happens like that. See, Harold Wilson, the former Prime Minister of Britain, said once that just 1 week is very long time for politics, because lot of changes can happen in politics in just 1 week of time. But the other side of banking and finance, just 2 days is a long time in banking or finance. Because in 2 days of time, certain things happen in the recent past also globally, which change the global situation considerably. You know that, or you must be remembering that one. Risk management was there quite a long time. I also speak about risk management very often in many forums. Take about the philosophy of risk management, the concept of risk management and all. Banking sector has given a lot of importance to risk management and all. I would encourage many of you, if not all of you, to take risk management as a specialization, because that is going to be the future of any business in India. Now the banks are having chief risk officers, risk management department, risk managers, risk officers and all. Going ahead, every shop you see in the street will have a risk manager, and they should have a risk manager, otherwise survival will be difficult. Do we have that type of a risk management in all our banks? We have a lot of cooperative banks in Kerala, cooperative banks, urban cooperative was, rural cooperative bank, Kerala bank, formerly there are state cooperative banks and all. Do these institutions have a proper risk management system? Your research on accounting, finance and banking should open the door for that. Understand the risk complexities of banking and finance and tell them that this is what you are doing now, and this is the way it is going on, and this is where you are going to land upon. If your research and other subjects will help it another. Now you see, banking as a whole, we started from 1960s and all. The globe has seen a global crisis in the year 2000. Because somebody said, I have been a teacher also for some time. When Dhanya asked me whether you have a presentation, I avoided that, because a presentation will take me to a classroom. So since this is not a classroom, but still I started asking questions. The first global banking crisis came in the year 2008. What was the reason? Because of this risk management or banking finance discussions, and certainly it's not a very good topic to discuss in the early morning. And so that I can see you, some of you working on the phone, some of you are otherwise also engaged, but many of you are not here in mind. Therefore, I ask you certain questions also. What was the reason for the 2008 global banking crisis? Where it originated? In US. In 2008, it happened in 2008. We were talking about the banking of India in 1960s and all. So in 2008, globally, there was a crisis. It affected India also, but to a certain extent, it was limited in a limited extent also. But in between came the much focus on risk management globally. I don't want to go to the advanced topics of risk management, but there were, at least some of you must be knowing. But globally, so-called norms called Basel norms came there 2008 onwards. And 2008 was the year where the global crisis started. The Basel I norms were introduced in the year 1988 with credit risk with focus, followed by the Basel II in 2004, bringing in market risk and operational risk also into the picture. And now, in 2007-9, the Basel III norms have been implemented. India implemented Basel norms in the year 1998. And after that, a lot of water has flowed in our rivers. But where do we stand now? In 2008, the global financial crisis in US originated, mainly for the reason that there were a lot of cheap loans given by some of the banks in the country, many of the banks in the country, which were to a global crisis. There were a lot of housing loan bubbles in the country, which caused many of the banks, 186 banks, are now suffering in the globe due to the recent financial crisis. Whereas 600 banks failed in the United States and other places across the globe because of the 2008 crisis. We had risk management systems in place by the time. We had a lot of researches by that time. A lot of people published a lot of papers in that time, within that period, starting from 1960s in India or even before that. Lot of researches happened. Lot of research papers were published. We had a lot of seminars like this, discussions and understanding. Academicians spoke, practitioners spoke, theory was explained, research papers were discussed. Basel norms came into force. Professional risk management system started across the country. All the banks, including the banks in India, the Reserve Bank of India, spearheaded the risk management systems. I became a chief risk officer in the year 1998. All this has happened, but still, 2008 global financial crisis affected all the countries in the economy in the world, including India, to a certain extent. Why? What is the reason? There were no dearth for research papers. There were no dearth for scholars like you. There were a lot of student classrooms where these things were discussed, but still it happens. What was the reason? 2008 happened because of the cheap credit extended by most of the banks or some of the banks in the United States. There was a contagion effect for that. It spreads across the country, across the globe subsequently. There was a systemic risk caused by one institution, which affected the entire globe considerably. But that was in the year 2008. 15 years after that, in the year 2023, in which we are now, in the month of March 2023, one of the leading banks failed. What is the name of the bank? What is the name of the bank? Most of you are banking students, finance students, MBA students. Tell me, what is the name of that? The Silicon Valley Bank in the United States failed in the year 2023 March. On March 10th, the Silicon Valley Bank of United States failed. And what was the impact, you know? The entire markets across the bank collapsed or near to collapse. Lot of researchers started already searching what was the reason for that. Even after 2008 global crisis, even after the risk management systems established or more established across the country, across the globe, after 15 years from that level, once we streamlined our research by pace, when we started discussing more and more about banking, finance, accounting, researchers, and risk management, still the bank failed in Silicon Valley Bank failed in the United States in the year 2023, this year, last month. On 10th of March, it happened. You know what was the reason for that? Anybody? Anybody can say? This is a problem with an academician. Sometimes I become an academician also. Ask questions, not allowing people to rest. The Silicon Valley Bank failed in the United States mainly because of two reasons. Elementary banking, which you must have studied either for your BCom or graduation. Because many people at a time went to the bank and asked to refund their deposits. That's all. It is not a very complex science. Just one reason is that most of the deposit, a major part of the depositors went to that bank and asked to pay our money back. Deposits are always demand deposits. You know that, isn't it? Current account, savings bank, or term deposit, whichever types of deposits are repayable on demand. Even if you have a 10-year fixed deposit with a banking company, tomorrow you can go and ask, give me back money. Whatever penalty you charge, but give me back money. The principal amount will have to be returned. You will only lose a part of interest on that one. Savings bank account, you don't have anybody's permission, go to the ATM and withdraw the full money if you want. Same is the situation with the current account also, isn't it? So banks are facing that huge risk of anytime anybody coming and asking for returning the deposits. You must be, all of you must be having bank deposits, either savings bank account or recurrent deposit or term deposit with the bank. If all of you go today to your nearby bank and ask them to return your money, entire money, certainly the bank will find it difficult, because the bank has not kept their money, your money, idle with them. Using their money, the bank has already made lendings to the general public. When you ask to refund your money, you cannot expect the bank to go and ask the borrowers, you repay now itself so that I have to pay back to the deposits. So naturally there will be a turmoil there. What happened in Silicon Valley Bank was the same thing. The bank, which was very established, but it is not a major key player in the globe. This bank was very established. They put their entire money collected from the depositors in various forms. A part of that money was lent to the borrowers in whatever type of industry loan or housing loan, whatever type of loans. But there was no required level of credit demand. Loans were not in demand. So what they did, the Silicon Valley Bank put 55% of their money into the securities market in the form of debt instruments or bonds or debentures or government security market and all. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. That is good. It is very safe, isn't it? To put the money in government securities and all, it is very safe because the word government security itself means it is a secured asset. That is what that bank did. You know, during the pandemic and all, many of the startup organizations in America were not able to use their funds because the business was globally down. But they had enough money with them. So they put this entire money or majority of their cash with Silicon Valley Bank in deposits. But somehow or other, they got a news that Silicon Valley Bank is not doing well. Most of the startup organizations went to the bank and asked them to return the money. And that started a so-called run on the bank. One reason is that the bank failed to meet the repayment demand for repayment of the deposits which came all on a sudden. This is called liquidity risk. Liquidity risk is the mother of all other type of risk. Even for individual also, if you don't have enough liquidity, you are in trouble. Same is the case with the other organizations, particularly the banking organizations. When all the depositors or majority of the depositors came on a single day, $42 billion was withdrawn from Silicon Valley Bank. And the bank became nervous on that one. And then what they could do? I told you already, they have 55% of their money was put in government security, bond and debentures. So that's all safe money. Because when we put the money in government securities under, it is certainly very safe money. So whenever the depositors asked to refund the money, they could have gone to the government securities market and sold their securities and took money. It is very safe. But you know what happened in US? Last 1 year, the interest rates in United States was going up, as we have seen in India also. Everybody becomes happy if the interest rates are going up, isn't it? Because common man, it is their deposits adding more. Loan interest rates also will go up. Even the Reserve Bank of India increase the repo rate and all. Our deposits will get more interest. Our loan also will bear more interest. But the people are generally happy that their deposits get more interest. So in India also you saw the repo rate went up from 4% to 6.5% in 1 year time now. And after the SVB, Silicon Valley Bank incident, you must have noted, even the last monetary policy on April 6th, Reserve Bank also put it on hold. Otherwise, everybody was expecting further increase in the repo rate. When the repo rate goes up in India, or the Fed rate goes in the United States, what happens is that the yield on the government, I don't know to what extent you will understand that, but let me make it as simple as possible. When the interest rate goes up in a country, the yield on the government securities or bond also will go up. It is quite natural. Interest rates are going up in general, isn't it? In the case of government securities or bonds or debentures, when the yield go up, the rate of interest goes up, its price will come down. There is a reverse relationship between the yield and prices. When the interest rate goes up, value, the actual price of the government securities or bond and debentures will come down. So when the interest rate went up in United States, Silicon Valley Bank had 55% of their money invested in government securities and bonds. When the depositors came to them and asked for refunding the money, they could have sold the government securities or bonds. They went to the market to sell. Then they realized that because of the increase in the rate of interest across the country, the price of the securities have come down considerably. So they have to book a loss. They have to book a loss to sell the securities, and they sold the securities at a lower price. When the public noted through the media that Silicon Valley Bank is selling its securities at lower price, incurring a loss, that again lead to having the confidence is lost in the bank. And more people came and asked Silicon Valley Bank, refund our money. It has affected not only the Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank was the next. Entire economy of the American economy was started because of these one or two banks. And it went to other countries also. The Credit Suisse, the Switzerland-based Credit Suisse, the giant Indian bank, global banking. Even they were affected, which was saved by the government intervention there. So it is not a very big philosophy or science where research will have to happen. Research has happened also. Two reasons. One, what is the role of banking? Accepting deposits, and I'm just going to the most preliminary part of accepting deposits and lending. Banks do accept deposits, but they have no way to lend. Credit demand, loan demand is low. And naturally, they put their excess money in government securities, bonds, and all. If the Reserve Bank of India or the Fed, US Fed, increases the rate of interest across a period, say 1 year or more than 1 year period, the rate of interest goes up. The common man is happy that their deposits are getting more interest. But at the same time, the yield in the security market is going up, which means that once the yield goes up, the relationship between yield and price is that once the yield goes up, prices come down. So there's a two difficult situation. One is my depositors are asking me to pay back. I have no money because I put the money in the securities market. Okay, I decided to sell the securities. When I go to securities market, I get lower price because the yield is very high. Naturally, I find I am in a dilemma. How can I sell the securities at a lower price than I invested? If I don't sell it, how will I pay the demand of the depositor to pay back the money? This is elementary. And this elementary happened in a developed country in the year 2023, after the economies across the globe practiced banking for hundreds and hundreds of years, risk management, academicians, research papers, everything happened, but still the elementary sub-science of banking failed, and therefore in the year 2023, last month of 2023, we are in April now, March also, we saw difficulties across the globe. What is the reason for this one? Banks are failing in their responsibilities as a true banker. I need more and more deposits. You would put a lot of money in various banks. And you know that they are also keeping your money either as securities or lending also. But do you ever thought how strong these banks are in analyzing the risk of lending or analyzing the risk of investing money in the government securities and all? Some of the banks openly say that 55% of our deposits are, we have invested in government securities, giving a false confidence to the people that your money is safe. But in India, last we have seen, the yields are going up. Last 1 year, yields are going up. The 10-year government security is now 7.2%. What we have seen in India also, in the last 1 year, repo rate has gone from 4% to 6.5%. And only in the month of April, after the Silent Valley Bank incident, Reserve Bank of India put a pause there. Otherwise, everybody expected the repo rate to go at least by 25 basis points this month also. It did not happen. And when the people say that, the banks say that your money is safe because you have put money in the securities market, remember that if the yields goes up, the prices of the securities will come down and this bank will incur a loss. Okay, then can they spend their entire, lend their 100% deposits to the public? You know the difficulties of the lending and repayment difficulties. We have a lot of cooperative banks in the state of Kerala which failed, which are failing, which are going to fail also. Do you know that? Reason is that none of them even thought of having a proper liquidity assessment, no risk management system. Everything is only on paper. Everything is on your research papers, my risk management papers, but nothing in practice. We failed there. So as students of banking, finance and accounting MBA students and all, researchers present here, delegates and participants, ultimate responsibility for you is to understand how the society moves, how banking need changes, how finance is changing, and how effective your research papers are in understanding the situation and also making the public awareness, creating public awareness of that one. Liquidity risk is the biggest risk, the mother of all risks. If you have liquidity, you can manage all other things. But if you don't have sufficient liquidity in your hand, you are in trouble. But if for that purpose, if you keep the entire money with you and say that I am 100% liquid, then you are in trouble again because it affects your profitability considerably. So you have to think of that one. Banks have a treasury department. Every bank has got a treasury department. You know what is their job? The treasury department or the banks accept deposits. Isn't it? If they accept 100 rupees as deposits, all of you know that. It is again elementary banking. 18% of that will have to be kept with the Reserve Bank of India as a statutory liquidity ratio. 4.45% of that has to be kept with the bank RBI as a cash reserve ratio. A remaining amount they lend. And they make money out of that one. A part of that will go bad loan, irrecoverable loan, and they will have to provide for that one. The so-called NPA norms will come and they will face a loss there. So instead of lending every amount they have, the full amount they have, they put a lot of money in the government securities or bond. That is permissible also, they must do it also. But for everything there should be a balance. Silicon Valley Bank was otherwise very compliant with the rules and regulations of banking in the country. No doubt about it. They were very disciplined organization. No non-compliance, no violation of the federal norms. But they failed because the balance was not there. When they were not able to lend, they should have stopped accepting deposits or at least slowing down. Banking in principle says everybody wants growth. 100% growth, if it is there, it will earn good. Or 50% growth is people say that we have grown 50%. But the bank should think, researchers should understand, if you accept deposits from the people, you must be able to deploy that funds in a profitable manner. Balance in the risk involved in that one. If you are not able to lend properly, don't accept deposits. Is that what our banks are doing? Banks never put a full stop or semicolon for deposits. They always keep on accepting deposit, give a lot of interest rates and also give a lot of publicity for that one. Every bank, in India or Kerala, wherever it is. But the treasury, what they do? They get deposits there, and their money collected by various branches of the bank goes to the treasury of the bank for analysis. They understand that, yes, 100 rupees deposit is accepted, the bank has been able to spend, lend 20 rupees out of that one. So 80 rupees balance of that one, treasury puts 18% in the CRR, SLR, 4.5% the CRR, and the remaining portion what to do? Because there's no demand for loans. So they put the money in the bonds or debentures or securities, Government of India securities, and say that we have put our money in the most secured asset of government securities. Okay, and they take rest. Ultimately, everything is decided by the wind. If the government security market is safe, they are safe. If the government security or bond debenture market is affected by the interest rates announced by the Reserve Bank of India every quarter, then the security markets become nervous. Result is that this bank is considerably affected. So the treasury, for that matter, should have an upper hand to say that you accept deposits if you are confident of lending. If we are not able to lend, a sizable part of that remaining fund I will manage through the government security. But treasury what now says that you accept as much of deposit as possible, lend as much as possible, give me the balance amount, I will put in government securities, bonds, debentures, and earn a lot of money for you, your funds are safe. And that is exactly what Silicon Valley Bank did. Silicon Valley Bank risk management system or treasury department never advised the bank branches to stop deposit acceptance if they are not able to lend. Startup organization, there is a connect between startup and the Silicon Valley Bank. Startup organization in the country which had a lot of money, which they were not able to invest in the business activities during the pandemic, put the entire deposit, bulk of deposits in the Silicon Valley Bank for as deposits. But once one or two of them started saying, we want our money back, then people have started discussing, your researchers have started discussing about, lot of papers came, and then ultimately what happened is that everybody was after this Silicon Valley Bank, give back my money. And Silicon Valley Bank is not keeping the entire deposit with them as in the safe custody. They have already lent it, and they have already put the money in the securities market. What followed is that within 2 days, that is what Harold Wilson said, 5 or 7 days is a long time for politics. But in 2 days is a very long time in banking and finance. In just 2 days of time, Silicon Valley Bank failed. Such a global organization working in a professional environment with good risk management systems placed, never violated any of the regulatory norms, very strong management, very competent board of directors, very strong risk management system, compliance department, never failed in obeying the government orders or regulatory orders. But they failed in just 2 days of time. Only reason, one is that the people wanted their money back. Second is that they were not able to sell the securities because the yield have gone up, which was not within their control. And ultimately the prices came down. So they had to book loss for selling their securities, and they sold it at a huge loss. Finally, what happened? Silicon Bank did not have money. So they announced that we are going for a public issue of $2 billion US dollar. That again sent a wrong message to the public that yeah, this bank is ultimately in trouble. They are trying to now invest more money. So more and more people ask for returning their money. This is what happened. Run on the bank. You know what? I hope all of you are aware what is run on the bank. When many people, large number of customers of the bank goes to the bank and asks to refund the deposit, that is called run on the bank. Run on the bank can be created by just rumors. There was an incident in our state, Kerala, way back in 1970s, where one of the branch managers in the district of Pathanamthitta wrote to one of their customers in Dubai or Abu Dhabi that the bank in which you are keeping your deposits is in trouble. He cited 3 or 4 reasons also. You follow me well. One of the branch managers of a particular bank in our district of Pathanamthitta wrote just a letter. Not that time there was no email facility and all. Just wrote a letter to one of its customers in Dubai or Abu Dhabi saying that, sir, the money you put in as deposit in that bank is really in trouble for such and such reasons. The negative news spread very fast. And that customer conveyed, there was no WhatsApp, there was no Instagram, Facebook, nothing was like that, but still by word of mouth, that negative news spread across the Gulf countries. And there was a run on the other bank in the state of Kerala. This bank was otherwise very strong. There was no problem at all. So this bank went to Reserve Bank of India complaining that this has originated from that point. And Reserve Bank of India was very kind enough in giving a notification that we hereby clarify that that particular bank is not at all in trouble. When RBI gave that clarification, it took a reverse effect. Because then people thought that there must be something behind that, otherwise how should the regulator immediately come and say that? And there was a huge run on the organization. As a result of which, that bank managed it very well, saying that they don't have any huge investment securities and all. So they arranged cash for every withdrawal. Whatever withdrawal was there, they paid the money. And showed the market that we are competent enough, we are efficient enough, we are strong enough to repay all the deposit if you want. And that slowly developed the confidence in the public that there was a rumor like that. And finally, the gentleman who wrote to the other customer of the bank, he was punished and he was thrown out of service and all. This is a history in Kerala in the year 1970s. So even a rumor will generate situations like this. But what happened by startup withdrawing their money in Silicon Valley Bank? That was not a rumor. And that affected $42 billion of withdrawal on a single day of March 10. And within 2 days, Silicon Valley Bank failed. Within 48 hours, SBB failed, followed by Signature Bank, another famous bank. So what happened in Washington Mutual, Lehman Brothers in 2008, because of the cheap credit, cheap lending, housing loan bubbles, came back in 2023 after 15 years in a different shape. You must remember that. Lot of researches happened during these 15 years. Lot of institutions like you conducted a lot of seminars, international conferences on banking and risk management, how to manage liquidity, how to invest funds in government securities. Lot of researches happened. During this period only, the risk management system got globally accepted as a necessity. And in India, it was strengthened day by day. Almost all the banks, at least scheduled banks, have proper risk management systems in place. And if that is the case with a developing country like India, a developed country in the United States and all, you can imagine, there were a lot of discussions, researches, deliberations, seminars, conferences, research papers and all. And a lot of people became famous. They got a lot of fame for publishing a lot of research papers. But ultimately, Silicon Valley Bank failed just 2 days of time in the year 2023, where we stand now, in the month of March. What ultimately it means. Researchers, I don't say that research papers or risk management did a wrong thing. But the fact is that risk management systems or researchers did not help to send the right message to the right people that banking is not as easy as it was in the past, because the market is very complex. So another aspect which we need to understand, that lot of evolution has happened in banking industry. Lot of evolution happened in the banking industry. For example, 1960 onwards till now, lot of evolution has happened. Nationalization, social costs, rural banking, small finance banks, India Payment Bank, lot of merger of public sector bank, everything has happened. The banking has considerably changed. But the evolution was okay. Evolution in a spaced manner, slow manner is okay. But now it is not revolution, it is revolution. We always say the fintech revolution, startup revolution and all. The startup revolution only started killing small Silicon Valley Bank. Fintech. Fintech is very effective. Many of you will get employed with fintech, or you may even start a fintech or startup in the days to come. They have done a lot of good things for the economy as a whole. Our regulators have played a good lot of things. But the system in place right now is very delicate. The system is very delicate even now. So it is good for all of you, the youngsters in the organization sitting in front of me, to think about all these things before you start a startup, or if you get into a fintech, or if you study about banking and finance and accounting research and all. Make sure that you do a good work to send a good message to the people, to the society, and also follow it up. It just should not become just like a paper, and you must do a lot more for that one. Okay, so this is the message which I wanted to convey to you. This being an international conference on banking, finance, and accounting research, my appeal to all of you, not to confine to this on papers or discussions or seminars only, but what we have seen across the country, across the globe in the recent past is very good indication that whatever novel things we did, we thought of, we implemented, we researched in the last few days has not done. It's a good role. That is why what happened in India or nationally or globally, even despite all the improvements and researches, even after publishing a lot of papers, even after implementing a lot of risk management systems in the country and globally, if this has happened last month in the current year, that means that we are ready to learn. This is not a big rocket science and all. Only thing is that the bank should not have accepted more and more deposits when they were finding it difficult to lend. The common impression that I have put my money in, say, government securities and all, it has been proved wrong. The very same principle, I quoted the 1970 incident in Kerala based on a rumor. The very same thing, just a rumor or an impression created by some startup organization that SVB is not in good shape, let us withdraw the money. That has created a contagion effect for the globe as a whole. It has caused a systemic risk. One organization failure will not be confined to that organization alone. It will have a systemic risk. The system will be in danger. The system will be in trouble. That is what exactly happened. 180 banking companies across the globe failed because of this Silicon Valley Bank incident. 186. You can imagine, 186 banking organizations, how many customers have been affected? How many establishments have been affected? How many economies have failed? Particularly for an economy like India, a developing economy, a growing economy with a lot of potential and prominence in the global market. If we are not careful, there is every possibility that despite the good control by the Reserve Bank of India, despite the good systems in place, we can be again in a problematic situation. And that is what we have to keep in mind. Your research papers, your efforts, your conferences, your seminars should emanate thinking in that direction. Then only you can say that purpose has been served. Your papers you publish in international journals or journals will be helpful, useful, and will be acknowledged by the society only if it helps. So ultimately, banking, finance, and accounting research should be able to release the complexities, understand and identify the risk, release the complexities of business, whichever business that is under, and bring in be helpful to the risk management systems in place. With this, I conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for shedding light on pivotal areas of banking and sharing some invaluable words with respect to undertaking research projects. I'm elated to take this opportunity to invite Dr. Mini P.R., Dean Academics FISAT. She has received BE degree in Electronics and Communication Engineering from Government College of Technology and MTech in Digital Systems and Communication. Dear ma'am, we request you to kindly share a few words to felicitate the gathering.
Respected dignitaries on the dais, colleagues, and dear participants and students, a warm good afternoon to one and all. First and foremost, I congratulate the FISAT Business School for organizing this international conference on banking, finance, and accounting research. I hope that this two-day event will be very enriching for you, and so many insights have been given by the former speakers, and I hope that the outcome of this conference will be an increase in the number of quality research publications from your side, taking into account what Mohan Chandran sir and Raghavan sir had said. All those inputs can be taken in, and wishing you and the organizers success in this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The memory of the magnificent monuments and memorials may slip into oblivion, but the word of appreciation, a word of gratitude, may indelibly etch its presence in our minds. So as an expression of our gratitude and inexplicable bond we have forged, I now invite our chairman, Mr. Shimit PR, to present the memento to Dr. N.K. Raghavan sir.
Thank you, sirs. Now I invite our principal, Dr. Manoj George, to hand over the memento to Sri K.R. Mohanachandran, sir. Thank you, sirs. Next, I would like to welcome Dr. Dhanya Alex, Associate Professor, FISAT Business School, who is the conference coordinator and the force behind making this conference a reality today, to deliver the word of thanks.
Good morning, all of you. Today, I feel incredibly honored and privileged to be here to extend a word of thanks on this auspicious occasion. This is the third edition of FBS International Conference since 2020. I want to extend my warm regards and heartiest appreciation to our chief guest, Dr. K.N. Raghavan, IRS. We have been trying to have you, sir, here for quite some time as a special guest in finance, in FISAT, as many of our students and faculty members are hardcore fan of yours. On behalf of our college's whole fraternity, I sincerely thank the chief guest of the day, Dr. N.K. Raghavan, for taking time from your busy schedule and gracing the occasion with your warm presence. It's indeed a great honor for our college to have welcomed a chief guest who is known for his great contributions in the field of management and administration, sports and literature. Thank you, sir. Sri Mohanendran, the keynote speaker of the day, is our family. Sir has been associated with FISAT in several capacities earlier as a part of the management. Being a person with strong academic interest, Mohanendran sir has always supported us, especially in the enrichment of finance papers as an industry expert. I wish to extend a heartfelt gratitude for your constant support and for being with us today as a keynote speaker. Thank you so much, sir. The wheels began rolling 3 months ago when this conference was declared. Since then, everyone has become a part of the process in many ways, from the organization team, to the committee members, to the participants, to the faculty. I would like to extend thanks on behalf of the department to our Honorable Chairman, Sri Shimit Pia, and our Principal, Dr. Manoj George, for always being strong pillars of support and motivation. Thank you, sirs. Dr. Mini Pia, Dean Academics and IQAC Coordinator, has been instrumental in planning the quality initiatives in our institution. We thank you, ma'am, for being with us today. I thank Dr. A.J. Joshua, Director, FISAT Business School, for encouraging such programs in our department. Of course, a big thank you goes to my fellow faculty coordinators of this conference, Dr. Nita Unikrishnan and Ms. Marin Thomas, who ran pillar to post to make this conference happen. My sincere thanks to all the faculty members of MBA department for supporting us in the best possible ways they can. My sincere thanks to all the students and student volunteers. I would also like to place on record the continuous support we receive from the Administrative Officer, Mr. Vinod, PRO, Mr. Shindo, Chief Librarian, Mr. Sino, in arranging the venue, ensuring the availability of various resources, taking care of publicity, etc. And let me thank the most important contributors of this conference. On behalf of our college, I would like to thank the participants and paper presenters from various institutions who have joined in the live streaming of this event. We are having a YouTube live streaming. Since this conference is held in a hybrid mode, most of the participants have joined in the live streaming session in YouTube. So we welcome you all, and we look forward to see your paper presentations today afternoon, tomorrow morning, and tomorrow afternoon. We thank you for sharing your research work and ideas, which will make this conference a grand success. Once again, thanking you all, I remain. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, I thank you all for being a part of today's conference and making it a grand success. Thank you all for your valuable participation and support. I enough request the audience to kindly rise for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
With that, we have come to the end of the inaugural function. So once again, thank you all for your presence here and have a great day.